Here we are again at Perfectly Paranormal, and this is episode 122. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. They truly don't. And people probably think I'm a little bit mad talking about this stuff, but you know what? I love challenging the skeptics. So I'm here to share with you today, you're going to learn how to recognize the sometimes weird and strange ways that your eyes and your intuition, your third eye chakra, if you believe in that, how you can see spirits or dark and demonic entities. And we're not talking the traditional full-bodied apparitions, even though they do show themselves that way sometimes. I have a lot of examples for you of other ways that disembodied souls can present themselves, how they show themselves to us if they choose to. So we are going to look at both the spirit level entities, but also the dark and the demonic level entities, which I'll leave to the end. I'm going to start with spirits. So I find, you might find this a little bit strange, you know how I always share things are a bit odd, a bit weird, no one else talks about it because they probably think it's not trending. I don't do the trending paranormal talk, I just do what's real for me from what I've experienced. Spirit energy tends to show you the important bits. Now I know you're wondering what I mean by the important bits. It is the parts of themselves that carry a message or an answer to a question. Now, sometimes you may see or feel their emotions or unknowingly act out their habits or actions as well, and I'm going to explain that too. I have actually never ever seen a full-bodied apparition of a spirit. Instead, whether I'm doing a house clearing or a paranormal investigation or spirits just come and show themselves sometimes, I see bits of a person. I know that sounds odd, but it's bits of them as they were in life. Why do they show us different parts of themselves? You might see their full body. They might show you themselves at home doing something. I think that spirits have differing levels, they have differing skill sets in their abilities to show themselves. If they're a new spirit, if they've just passed, do they know how to show themselves? Or are they earthbound spirits that have been here for quite a long time who can do the full apparition thing? I mean, who knows? I'm not a spirit. I can't explain it. Maybe they'll come and tell me one day and I can do a post-edit to this episode. But I just find that they must produce different levels of energy to be able to show themselves. It really is interesting how they show themselves in our environment. So never doubt what your eyes are seeing or what you are feeling, because it may be someone showing themselves to you because they have a message, or they just want to say hi, or they want help. Now, I have a great example of partial spirit appearance that happened during a house clearing that I did back in 2024. And I've called this experience the Moustached Man. Now, I've kind of given away some of the ways that this man showed himself, but it was absolutely fascinating. And I had to share it with you today. And you'll be like, wow, this was one experience that I will never forget. I had a spirit show himself to me, but only two defining areas on his face. In the following retelling of this experience and how it meant so much to the homeowner. He was like, wow. Now we're going to call this homeowner John. And John purchased the generational home of his family. This is a few years ago now. And he constantly felt the presence of spirits in the home. He wasn't what you would call a true believer, but he just knew that there was someone wafting around the breezes, and he just felt. And I suppose being the generational home, maybe he had that hope that some of the spirits would be present. Well, he did ask me to do a house clearing one day because there was other particular issues that were going on at the time. So I tuned into the home looking at the floor plan. And as I'm just working my way through the home, I can't remember exactly which room I was in. that I suddenly saw this massive moustache that appeared in front of my eyeballs. Was like, wow, where did that come from? Because as I'm clearing homes, I don't have any preconceived idea about who or what I'm going to find. I go in as a totally blank slate, so then I am not contaminating is the word I was looking for. I'm not contaminating the environment with expecting to see spirits or dark or demonic entities. Now this moustache, it was quite fascinating. It was the biggest, fullest moustache that I'd ever seen. And it was starting to grey a little bit. You know, it had the silver hairs kind of sprinkled here and there. And it just would not leave my vision until I acknowledged it. Like I looked away from the floor plan. I looked away from the house, the picture of the house that was on my computer. It was still there. Like, was it in front of my eyes or in my third eye? I think it was a bit of both. And as I said, I see you, I saw for an instant the eyes of an older man. And he had kind of bloodhound type drooping skin under his eyes. Now, I was really excited. I was like, wow. So I messaged John, and I think he replied quite quickly. And I explained to him what I'd seen and how bold this moustache was, because it was truly the most magnificent moustache I've ever seen. And at first he's like, I don't know, who could that be? I said, well, I don't know, you live in the house. I said, I didn't see it before I tuned into your house, so that tells me it's someone in the home. He had no idea who it was, but he said he'd do some research. And he asked aunties and uncles if they'd known anyone that had this big moustache. Well, you're going to love this. To my astonishment, and John's astonishment too, he found a picture of the exact man in an old family book. And he sent me a screenshot and he said, is this him? And I looked at the photo for maybe 2 seconds and I went, wow, that is an instant resounding yes. And I'm typing, yes, this is him. Who is he? John proceeded to then tell me that this was his great-great-grandfather. And it all just started to make sense. His great-great-grandfather was letting me know that he was watching me energetically moving about his house and that he was keeping an eye on me. Or he could have been letting John know that he was there in the house, enjoying watching the family and the great-great-great-grandkids growing up. I mean, it could have been both. But it was such a fascinating experience that I'll probably never ever forget it. But if he had have shown me his full self, or, you know, maybe his flannelette shirt and his braces and the trousers of the time and his shoes, it wouldn't have been a description that John could go to and ask someone and say, look, you know, who was this? Because it was so generic. The moustache and the eyes, on the other hand, were not generic. They belonged to the great-great-grandfather. And he showed me this most distinguishing part of himself so that his great-grandson would know it was him. And all the family spirits are still in that house. And I'm sure they come and go and they just move about. And I removed all the normal, all the emotional imprints, trauma imprints, and any other energetic baggage and a few demonic entities that were lurking in the home. And there was a few magic beings that were trying to hide in that home too. I got rid of them as well. But the spirits stayed. And it just put a huge smile on my face. If you could see my face right now, you would see how big my smile is. Now, in the past, I was going to a friend's place. I was driving up to a friend's place in the north of Tasmania. I'm getting close to the destination. And I see the back of a lady in a kind of cheap pink fluffy dressing gown, and I could see her hair. And my friend's house that I was going to, she'd had some spirits roaming around in her home. And I went, oh, do you know anyone that wears a pink dressing gown or, you know, has sort of shoulder length brown straight hair? And my friend's like, no, I don't know anyone like that. But we do have an aged care facility up on the hill. And I went, aha. Because my friend is an energy worker. She does readings, like tarot readings, card readings, oracle readings. Sometimes the spirits will just roam around and go and visit her. They'll be in the home and she and her children and the pets will sometimes feel their presence. Now, sometimes I see children. I see their legs below the knee, It's really, really unusual. And it's often the hemline of a young girl's dress, or it might be the pants that a young man is wearing of a particular time frame. And I can clearly describe the way that he or she or they are standing. The colour and sometimes the type of shoes, the sock type and the colours, and sometimes the surfaces that they're standing on. This happened before I was a paranormal tour guide at a particular place here in southern Tasmania. We were told as we were doing a tour that there were some young girls that lived in this particular building. I think their names were Mary Ann and Alice. It was a few years ago now. And the tour guides at the time didn't say anything else. And I was upstairs roaming around as I do, and we had a few gadgets and we were just talking to the spirits at the site. And I saw a young girl's pair of legs. And I'm like, and I think it was the waistline for her. I saw the waistline to the hemline of this beautiful, pristine white dress. Now, it would have been the sort of dress that kids would have worn to, say, Sunday school or a wedding or a special occasion. And she had on the most beautiful white socks, and I can't remember whether they were white patent leather shoes or black patent leather shoes, but they were from a particular time frame. And when I found one of the tour guides and I said, look, I keep seeing this young girl, and they're like, oh, please tell me more. And I explained what I was seeing, and they went, yep, that's either Mary Ann or Alice that occupy that particular building. And they were there with a parent who was a resident of that particular site. So I found that really, really interesting. At another time, this is an intuitive vision as well as a seeing vision. Now, sometimes it's hard to define the difference between the two, because what you see in your mind, is it your brain, mind, consciousness, or is it your third eye, intuition, consciousness? I don't know. Is it the same thing? Anyway, we're not going to get distracted by that. I was clearing a table for a lady, and I think I've talked about this before. It had belonged to her father-in-law, and she didn't tell me anything about the father-in-law. She just said it came into the family and no one wanted it in the house. I love clearing furniture. She sent me a photo. And as I'm going through the emotional imprints, the trauma imprints, I suddenly saw, which was slightly disturbing, a very large fist hurtling down onto the table with such ferocity and anger that I saw and felt the table visibly shake. And as the table's shaking, I was shown this very quick flash of a lady sitting at the end of the table, like she was cowering in a chair. Now, this wasn't technically seeing spirits, but this was seeing the energy of what had occurred to the table. Now, the man that enacted that particular ferocity on that table had passed away, because that's why they inherited the table, and the table wanted it cleared. They're like, nah, I don't want that energy on me anymore. So was I actually removing the spirit energy from that table? Very possibly. Or was it like a residual energy? It could have been a bit of both. The man actually made the table. It was made out of hewn pine, which is a prized wood here in Tasmania and probably around the world. It takes like 300 years for the tree to be big enough to actually cut it down and make furniture. But anyway, that table was cleared and it did make its way into the home, but it went to the husband's den. Now, another example of spirit partial appearance. I talked about this back in episode 96 when I was doing a house clearing for Marie, because Marie had some rather unsettling energy in one of the bedrooms, and they had some other things that were going on in the house. There was an old ensuite that had now been turned into a storage room. And every time she was in there, she felt angry and the child was angry, and there was lots of things going on in that house, and particularly in that room. And again, I'm looking at the floor plan, looking at a picture of the front of the house. As I entered the front door, as I do, I'm very OCD about how I enter houses. It's always entering the front door, asking permission to enter from the land, from the house guardian, as I call it. I always go up the hallway and turn to the left. It's just how my brain works. Very OCD, but it works for me. So anyway, I'm doing my process. And there was a very long hallway in this house. And as I'm standing there assessing the hallway and getting ready to remove all the emotional imprints, the trauma imprints, and then looking at what sort of paranormal beings are present, I saw a man. And I only saw his face. And we lovingly nicknamed this man the Bursting Face Man. And you're going to understand why in a minute. Because it was the only way I could describe him to Marie. She was like, "What do you mean?" And when I explained it, she's like, "Oh yeah, that's the energy I felt in this house." Now, I didn't see this man's full face or his body, but I saw his eyes that were really, really angry. Like, he was rageful. He was so angry that his big red nose was so red it looked like he was just going to explode. There's no other way I can explain it. But this face, I could see him moving through this hallway. Like, he was stomping up and down the hallway. He was so angry. He was yelling and screaming and slamming doors. And this is how he showed himself to me. Like, he wasn't attacking me. He wasn't attacking the people in the home. So was this like a type of residual haunting where the energy is in that home? When there's this type of spirit energy, I believe that they're there reenacting what they did in the home. So anyway, we're not going to get caught up in that sort of thing. So he was cleared. I cleared him from that home. He was the first point of call. I think this is why it came up first, is that the home was like, you need to get rid of him first, then we'll show you all the other levels and layers of energy that needs to be removed. It was an old schoolhouse. So you could imagine the goings-on from the children, from the principals, from the parents, and all that energy was still present. If you want to hear Marie's full harrowing experience in this old schoolhouse, which became the family home, complete with the shushing man that is in there, he was the principal. He was quite funny. And there was also a red velvet chair that had some rather icky energetic attachments. If you want to have a listen to that episode, go back and check out episode 96. Now, demonic entities, gotta love them. They're going to show you what they know will frighten you. That's their agenda. That's their MO. That's what they do. They read our minds and they know people's reactions. You've just got to see it when you watch paranormal investigations or movies or read the books or play the games, whatever. You see exactly how people react. And entities are like, right, if I do that, I'm going to get that emotion to feed off, whether it's panic, paranoia, fear, anxiety, whatever. That's why they do it. They love stirring up people. They really, really do. Because we humans get rather easily excited. And these beings get their emotional food source, which is like a type of vibration or a frequency that they are individually drawn to, that they need, and it feeds them. Because they're of a lower vibration, their energy is denser, and your body is going to feel that. And sometimes you see it. I walked into my home one day after being out doing something, and I never ever, like I've said before, I never assume I've got spirits or any other type of entities in my home. I just come home, go about my business. Otherwise, you can become overwhelmed. Your brain can switch into the paranormal addiction mode, and it just drives you a little bit bonkers. So I don't even think about the paranormal. They will show themselves to me or my body will respond to it. Anyway, I was in the kitchen, moving past the kitchen door into my little dining area, when I saw this outline of this black shape. And as my full frontal vision saw it, it slipped to the side and up the hallway. And when I quickly looked around that corner, there was nothing there. Now, that wasn't a demonic entity. I've got protection around my property that keeps the demons out, that are coming because of the emotions we create in this house, or that I create in this house, or coming from people's properties. They never ever get into my home. That was a magic being. That is a whole other case of keeping energies out of your home, which I hadn't quite refined at that time. So this entity I saw and I went, interesting. I don't give them any reactions. I just sit down, do my dowsing. I worked out where it was, how many there were, moved it out, got rid of it. Now, I did a story a while ago in one of my other episodes, way back in the beginning, in the past episodes, and I still distinctly remember the red eyes that appeared in my bedroom. This is many, many years ago now. There were these rather large, piercing, deep red eyes. They were right next to my bed. Now, I sleep by myself. There was no one else in the house. The curtains were drawn. There was no lights coming in. There was nothing that could have been these red eyes. I don't even have a bedside lamp. I use a torch, which is kind of funny, but it just kind of works for me. I hadn't watched any paranormal or any horror movies before going to bed. I didn't have any preconceived images in my mind. There were simply these red eyes. Now, this being, whoever it was, deemed that that was the way he could show himself to me. And it wasn't a spirit. Spirits don't show themselves to me that way. It had a denser, more unsettling feel. And I didn't actually feel it until I got onto the bed. So it had obviously been sitting there for quite a while waiting, probably tapping its little fingers on the bed going, "Where is she?" So I looked around these eyes and I couldn't see sort of any defined outlines in the darkness because I didn't turn the light on. I thought, no, this thing's in the dark. I'm going to stay in the dark. It didn't frighten me. I was, how can I put it, neutral. I was totally neutral, didn't create any emotions around it. Wasn't there to hurt or harm me. That's not what these beings do. They want to create the emotions that they feed off. So I wasn't feeding it anything. Look, I had my eyes open, but I could kind of see it in my mind at the same time. And this being communicated by a rather interesting type of telepathy. What I saw was I was asking him questions, and these beings know that when I do my paranormal investigations, 1 activation of a light is for yes and 2 is for no. So what this being was doing is that it was using its eyes to blink once for yes and twice for no, because I was asking questions. Because I'm like, why, I didn't say why are you here, because that's not a yes or no question. You have to ask questions that have a yes or no answer. This is something you learn. Can't ask them open-ended questions. Anyway, we worked out that this being, it had enough of being here. It was like, I am so totally sick of being here. I just want to transition to the other side. And I've talked about it before. Dark and demonic entities, they can return to the light. His energy, as he was sort of doing this blinking, his energy felt drained. Like I was starting to feel drained. He was tired. I was starting to feel tired. And it was like this being had just had enough of existing in darkness because they have free will just like we do. And once they know they have free will and it's like, oh, so I actually don't have to be doing this for the rest of eternity. I can actually choose to leave. The devil can't keep them there. Free will has reign, like it reigns the universe. Your free will and your intention is everything. And he just surrendered himself to the light. Now, the archangels didn't come and get him, although they probably could have. There are some, what I call legion generals, that are present at the threshold, which is for the dark and the demonic entities when they want to transition. This being came and escorted this red-eyed being off into the afterlife, and away it went. And I thought too that we should touch on elementals, who are the nature-caring beings in our environment. They too can show themselves. Now, I talked about this back in, it was episode 3 or 4. It was one of my most vivid, memorable experiences that I had. Now, I have seen trolls on 2 occasions. Now, at the time, I didn't know they were trolls until I conveyed the description to a friend of mine in the UK, and he went, "Oh, that's a troll." And I went, well, that kind of makes sense, because when I looked up trolls online to get some ideas about, what they kind of look like, this fitted exactly what this being looked like. He was kind of grumpy, wanted to be left alone. He had very dense, heavy, fur-like appearance. Now, I only saw the back of this being. I've never seen a troll's face. But I know by the type of energy, and when you see in your mind, or with your eyes, is what I saw the first one, it's like, if you imagine Highland cows, if any of you out there know what they are, or just look them up online, they have very long, sort of straggly hair, I suppose you'd call it. It's not really fur, it's more hair. This is what I was seeing with this being. And it was huddled in a corner. It had a large, roundish kind of shape. It was like, I want to talk to you, but I don't. You just need to go away. So I honoured this being this very first time. But they have a particular smell to them. Now, it can range from lingering burnt toast to a rather faded kind of roadkill type stench. Now, these beings are really interesting. But I've experienced trolls twice now. And I also occasionally see gnomes. Now, you're all going to be going, oh, gnomes are just something out of a story. No, I don't think they are. Because like I said, I go into places totally neutral, no expectations about what I find. And I've seen gnomes, like their little bare bums with their shirt that kind of comes to their bum crack. They're really quite funny, walking away from me again, and they're just going about their business in people's homes. I've talked about elementals on the podcast. Just need to scroll back through the episodes and you'll find them. So next time you're out and about, or you're on a paranormal investigation, or you're watching a movie, or you're just out on the land, or you're doing a bushwalk, or you're in an old abandoned building for God knows whatever reason, be aware of what you can see. Just observe. Observe how spirits show themselves to you. Observe how you see dark beings. Don't respond. It's a little bit of a mind game you've got to play with them. And you never know, you might just see someone or something. And don't fob off the partial sightings that you get or the visions that you get, because it's all relevant as to how spirits and other entities present themselves in our environment. So in episode 123, oh, you're going to love this. You're going to hear Liz's struggles with land degradation and tree removal outside her apartment window. She was shown in a dream by a rather disgruntled land guardian. Oh, she emailed me and she was like, what are we going to do with this? And I'm going to share, because with Liz's permission, I'm going to share exactly what we did. Because halfway through writing an email back to Liz, like the first reply to her first email, what I wrote kind of turned into a flooding list of suggestions to help Liz understand how she could heal the land where she lived. Because she was really stressed about all this. Like, it had plagued her mind for years about what people had done to the trees outside her apartment. So, if you're interested, stay tuned for next week's groundbreaking episode, and I look forward to spending time with you then. If you like the content of this episode today, please think about leaving me a rating and a review. What reviews do is they let other people know your thoughts about my supernatural subject matter. People love reading reviews, and we're spreading the word about the real paranormal world around us. I would really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the episode. So thank you for joining me today, and don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.